My girlfriend thinks I'm cheating because I know how to fold fitted sheets. I never thought domestic skills would nearly end my relationship, but here we are. My girlfriend of 8 months moved in with me last month, and everything was going great until laundry day. I was folding our sheets when she walked into the bedroom and froze. She just stood there, watching me fold a fitted sheet into a perfect square, like I'd just performed actual magic. Then she asked where I learned to do that. I told her my mum taught me when I was 12 because she believed everyone should know basic life skills. That's when things got weird. She started asking really specific questions like, did an ex-girlfriend teach me? Did I learn it to impress someone? Was I secretly living with another woman? The questions kept coming and getting more intense. I tried explaining that my mother literally made me practice folding sheets until I could do it blindfolded, because she said messy linen closets were a sign of poor character, but my girlfriend wasn't buying it. She said no straight man just knows how to fold fitted sheets. That perfectly, without being taught by a romantic partner. She accused me of having secret relationships and hiding my domestic training from previous girlfriends. I was so confused I actually called my mum on speakerphone to confirm the story. My mum laughed and told her about the summer she made me reorganise the entire linen closet 3 times because my hospital corners weren't crisp enough. She even mentioned how she used to time me folding sheet sets and wouldn't let me go out with friends until I beat my personal record. You'd think that would settle it, but no, my girlfriend said my mum was obviously covering for me and that mothers always lie to protect their sons. She started going through my apartment, looking for evidence of other women living there. She checked the bathroom for extra toothbrushes, examined the closet for feminine clothing, and even counted the hangers to see if there were too many, when she found my good dish towels neatly organised by colour and size. She completely lost it. She said no man organises dish towels unless he's been trained by multiple women, and that I was clearly a serial dater who collected domestic skills from each relationship. I tried to explain that I just like having a clean, organised home, because chaos stresses me out, but she said that was exactly what a cheater would say to cover his tracks. She demanded to know the names of every woman who'd ever been in my apartment and wanted to see my dating history going back 5 years. The breaking point came when she found my spice rack alphabetized and my pantry organized with labels facing out. She sat on the kitchen floor and cried, saying she felt like she didn't know me at all and that I'd been lying about who I was since we started dating. I'm genuinely at a loss here. I learnt these things because my parents believed in raising self-sufficient children, not because I was groomed by a series of girlfriends. My dad can sew buttons and my brother can plan a dinner party for 12 people. We're just competent adults. She's been staying at her sister's place for 3 days and sending me texts asking for the truth about my domestic training. I love her, but I'm starting to wonder if this relationship can survive my ability to properly fold laundry. I honestly don't know what to do here. Am I missing something? Or is this as ridiculous as it seems? This is genuinely one of the most bizarre trust issues I've ever encountered. Imagine being so convinced that basic life skills are suspicious that you spiral into full detective mode over fitted sheets. The poor guy probably spent his childhood getting lectured about hospital corners, and now he's being interrogated like he's running some kind of domestic training facility. This whole situation says way more about her insecurities than his sheet folding abilities. Speaking of relationships that took unexpected turns, here's another story that will make you question everything. I accidentally became my co-worker's fake boyfriend, and now I'm in too deep to back out. This started 6 months ago when I overheard my co-worker Diana crying in the break room. Her family had been pressuring her about being single at 28 and kept setting her up on terrible blind dates. She was dreading her cousin's wedding because she knew she'd spend the entire reception dodging questions about her love life. Without really thinking, I offered to be her fake boyfriend for the wedding, just to get her family off her back. She looked so relieved that I couldn't take it back. Even though I immediately regretted opening my mouth, we spent the next week creating our fake relationship backstory, how we met, when we started dating our favourite restaurants together. The wedding was actually fun. We had our story down perfectly, and her family loved me. Her aunt kept saying how nice it was to finally see Diana with someone who appreciated her. Her mum pulled me aside and thanked me for making her daughter so happy. I started feeling guilty about the whole charade. But Diana seemed genuinely relaxed for the first time since I'd known her. What I didn't expect was how natural it felt pretending to be her boyfriend. We held hands during the ceremony, danced at the reception, and I found myself actually enjoying her company outside of work. She's funny and smart, and I realised I'd never really noticed how beautiful she is when she's not stressed about deadlines. After the wedding, I figured that would be the end of it. But Diana's family started inviting me to everything her dad asked me to help him move furniture. Her sister invited us to double date with her, and her husband, her mum, started texting me directly about family dinner plans. Diana seemed panicked about disappointing them, so I kept going along with it. We attended her nephew's birthday party, where I spent 2 hours playing video games with her teenage cousins, who decided I was cool. We went to her grandmother's 80th birthday, where I learned to play bridge, and somehow won $40. The problem is I'm starting to catch real feelings, somewhere between helping her dad fix his deck and listening to her grandmother's stories about meeting her late husband. I realised I wasn't pretending anymore. I actually look forward to these family events. I've started thinking about Diana differently. At work, she seems to enjoy having me around too. She laughs at my jokes more. She saves me the good coffee from the break room, and last week she grabbed my hand without thinking. When we were walking to her car after a family barbecue, we both noticed at the same time, and it got awkward. But I don't know if she actually likes me, or if she's just grateful for the help with her family situation. She might be the best actress in the world, or she might be developing feelings too. I'm too scared to ask, because if I'm wrong, I'll ruin our friendship and make work incredibly uncomfortable. Last weekend at her cousin's graduation party, her aunt asked when we were planning to get engaged. Diana looked at me with this expression. I couldn't read, and said we were taking things slow. Her mum started talking about how patient love is better than rushed love, and how she could tell we were meant to be together. I wanted to tell Diana how I felt right there, but her whole family was watching, and I chickened out. Now I'm lying awake, wondering if I should confess my feelings or keep pretending until she eventually meets someone real and breaks up with her fake boyfriend. The worst part is I think I'm falling in love with her, but I have no idea if the person I'm falling for is real or just an act she's putting on for her family. I've created this perfect relationship prison where I get to play house with someone I care about, but never know if any of it means anything. Her family's planning a big anniversary party next month, and they've specifically requested that I be there to help with setup. I want to go because I genuinely care about these people now, but I also know I'm just digging myself deeper into this mess. I don't know how to get out of this without hurting everyone involved, including myself. This guy managed to accidentally create the most elaborate romantic comedy plot in real history. He's living in a fake relationship that feels more real than most actual relationships, while slowly falling for someone who might just see him as a convenient family shield. The fact that he's genuinely bonded with her entire extended family makes this so much more complicated than a simple confession of feelings. At this point, he's basically an honorary family member who happens to be living a complete lie. Our next story proves that sometimes the most unexpected connections happen in the strangest places. I matched with my therapist's daughter on a dating app, and now family dinners are incredibly awkward. This happened 3 months ago, and I'm still processing it. I've been seeing Dr. Rodriguez for anxiety therapy for about 2 years now, and we've built a really good therapeutic relationship. She's helped me work through some major issues, and I genuinely respect her as a professional. So I'm scrolling through Bumble one evening when I see this gorgeous woman named Isabella. Great smile, interesting bio, we have tons in common. I swipe right, we match, and start chatting immediately. The conversation flows naturally, and within a few days we're planning our first date. The date goes amazingly well. Isabella is funny, intelligent, and we have incredible chemistry. We talk for hours about everything from travel to our favourite books. She mentions she's close with her family, especially her mum who works in healthcare. I share that I've been working on myself in therapy, and she's really supportive about mental health awareness. We start dating seriously. 3 weeks in, she invites me to Sunday family dinner to meet her parents. I'm nervous but excited because things are going so well between us. She gives me the address, and when I pull up to the house, something feels familiar, but I can't place it. Isabella opens the door, beaming, and leads me inside. We walk into the living room where her parents are waiting, and I freeze completely. Sitting on the couch is Dr. Rodriguez, my therapist of 2 years, looking equally shocked to see me. There's this horrible moment of recognition where we're all just staring at each other. Isabella looks confused and asks if we know each other. Dr. Rodriguez recovers first and says we've met professionally. I mumble something about small world and try to act normal, but inside I'm dying. Dinner is the most uncomfortable experience of my life. I'm trying to make conversation with Isabella's dad, while simultaneously avoiding eye contact with my therapist, who now knows I'm dating her daughter. Every time Dr. Rodriguez asks me to pass something or make small talk, I remember all the personal things I've shared in our sessions. Isabella can tell something is off, but she doesn't know what. She keeps trying to include her mum in conversations, and I'm giving these weird, stilted responses. When Dr. Rodriguez mentions she's proud of the progress I've been making lately, Isabella lights up and says she's so glad her mum approves of me. After dinner, Dr. Rodriguez pulls me aside privately. She's completely professional, but explains that this creates a significant conflict of interest. She says she cares about both Isabella and my therapeutic progress, but continuing as my therapist while I date her daughter could compromise both relationships. She refers me to a colleague, and we agree not to tell Isabella the specifics of how we know each other, just that it's a professional conflict. Isabella is disappointed that her mum and I can't seem to connect, but she doesn't push for details. The relationship with Isabella continues, and it's wonderful, but family gatherings are still incredibly awkward. Dr. Rodriguez is polite but distant with me now. Last month at Isabella's birthday party, her mum mentioned how proud she is that Isabella found someone who takes mental health seriously. Isabella has started asking why her mum seems different around me compared to how she talks about me when I'm not there. She says her mum always speaks highly of me, but acts reserved when we're together. I've been deflecting, but I think she's starting to suspect there's more to the story. The weirdest part is that Dr. Rodriguez was actually a really good therapist, and the sessions were helping me a lot. My new therapist is fine, but we don't have the same rapport. Sometimes I wonder if I should have just stopped dating Isabella instead, but I'm genuinely falling in love with her. Now Isabella's talking about moving in together, and I know that means more family dinners, more holidays, potentially a lifetime of awkward interactions with someone who knows my deepest anxieties and childhood traumas. I love Isabella, but I don't know how to navigate a future where my girlfriend's mum has detailed knowledge of my psychological profile. The most surreal part happened last week, when Isabella mentioned that her mum said I seem like someone who's done a lot of personal growth work and that she respects how self-aware I am. It's like getting a therapeutic evaluation disguised as future mother-in-law approval. I have no idea how to handle this long term, and I'm too embarrassed to bring it up in therapy with my new doctor because explaining the situation makes me sound like I'm living in a sitcom. This poor guy accidentally turned his love life into the most complicated ethical dilemma imaginable. Dating your therapist's daughter has to violate some kind of unwritten rule about keeping your personal and therapeutic lives separate. The fact that Dr. Rodriguez is essentially giving him glowing reviews through family dinner small talk while maintaining professional boundaries is actually pretty impressive. But imagine trying to build a future with someone when their mum has a detailed file on all your emotional baggage. Here's a story that proves sometimes the biggest relationship obstacles come from the most unexpected places. My boyfriend's ex-wife keeps sending me her old photos of him, and I don't know how to make it stop. I've been dating Trevor for 8 months, and overall our relationship is really healthy. He was married for 12 years and has been divorced for 3 years now. His ex-wife Monica has primary custody of their 2 kids, and they've managed to maintain a civil co-parenting relationship, which I really respect. The problem started about 4 months ago, when Monica got my phone number from Trevor for emergency contact purposes regarding the kids. That same week, I received a text from an unknown number with a photo attached. It was a picture of Trevor from what looked like their honeymoon, shirtless on a beach, looking about 15 years younger. I thought it was a mistake, so I didn't respond. But then more photos started coming, always from different numbers, always without any text message, just photos of Trevor from their marriage. Some were clearly from family vacations, others from date nights, a few from what looked like their wedding day. At first I thought maybe she was trying to mess with our relationship, or make me jealous. But the photos weren't intimate or romantic, just normal couple pictures. Trevor opening Christmas presents, Trevor at a barbecue with friends, Trevor playing with the kids when they were toddlers. I finally told Trevor about it, after receiving a photo of him carving a Thanksgiving turkey while wearing an apron that said "World's Best Dad." He was as confused as I was and said he'd talk to Monica about it. That night he called her, and I could hear her getting defensive on the other end of the phone. Trevor came back and said Monica claimed she was just trying to share memories and didn't understand why I was upset. She said she thought I'd want to see what kind of person Trevor was during their marriage, that it would help me understand him better. She insisted she wasn't trying to cause problems. The photos kept coming though. Trevor grilling hamburgers at a block party, Trevor dressed as a pirate for Halloween, Trevor asleep on the couch with both kids napping on his chest. Each one felt like a small invasion of privacy, like she was forcing me to witness their entire relationship history. I started to notice patterns when the photos arrived. Always late at night, usually after Trevor had spent time with the kids, sometimes right after he'd post something about us on social media. It felt calculated, but I couldn't prove it. The strangest part was that some of the photos were actually really sweet. There was one of Trevor teaching their daughter to ride a bike, where his face was just pure joy and pride. Another of him slow dancing with Monica at what looked like a friend's wedding, where they both looked genuinely happy. I found myself studying these photos more than I wanted to admit. This was a version of Trevor I'd never seen, 15 years younger, with different hopes and dreams. Sometimes I caught myself feeling nostalgic for experiences that weren't even mine. 2 weeks ago, the photos suddenly stopped, and I thought maybe Monica had finally moved on. But then last Tuesday, I received a video. It was Trevor singing Happy Birthday to one of the kids, probably from 2 years ago, and his voice cracked with emotion during the song. I realised that watching these photos and videos was starting to affect how I saw Trevor. I kept comparing current Trevor to marriage Trevor, wondering if he loved Monica more than he loves me, questioning whether I'd ever get the version of him that existed in those pictures. When I brought this up to Trevor, he got really frustrated and said Monica was sabotaging our relationship on purpose. He called her again, and this time I heard yelling from both sides. Monica apparently accused him of trying to erase their family history and said I was being insecure about their past. Trevor changed his phone number and mine too, thinking that would solve the problem. But yesterday, I received a manila envelope at my apartment with no return address. Inside were printed copies of about 50 photos spanning their entire relationship. There was a note that said, "I thought you should see who he really was." I don't know if Monica is genuinely trying to help me understand Trevor better, or if she's systematically trying to undermine our relationship by forcing me to confront their shared history. Either way, it's working because I can't stop thinking about the life they built together and wondering if I'm just a placeholder until he finds someone who can give him what Monica couldn't. Trevor wants to involve lawyers, but I worry that will escalate things and affect the kids. I also don't want to be the reason his co-parenting relationship falls apart. But I can't keep receiving these glimpses into their marriage, because it's making me question everything about our relationship. The worst part is that some small part of me is grateful for the photos because they show me sides of Trevor I never would have seen otherwise, but I hate that I feel that way. This situation is like being haunted by someone else's marriage, except the ghost is very much alive and has your phone number. Monica is either the most manipulative ex-wife in history, or she's genuinely confused about appropriate boundaries after divorce. Either way, getting a manila envelope full of someone's relationship history delivered to your door is psychological warfare, disguised as sharing memories. The fact that the photos are actually making her question her relationship shows just how effective this strategy is, whether it's intentional or not. Let's move on to a story that shows how sometimes the smallest gestures can completely derail a relationship. My girlfriend broke up with me because I bought her groceries without asking. I thought I was being thoughtful, but apparently I crossed a major boundary that I didn't even know existed. Jessica and I had been together for 5 months, and I was starting to spend more time at her apartment. She's a graduate student, working part-time, so money is always tight for her. Last weekend I was at her place and noticed her fridge was pretty empty. Just some condiments, leftover takeout, and a few energy drinks. Her pantry had ramen noodles and not much else. She mentioned being stressed about midterms and not having time to grocery shop. I offered to pick up some food for her, but she said she was fine and would figure it out later. I could tell she was just being polite because she's always been weird about accepting help with money stuff. I've offered to pay for dinner dates before, and she always insists on splitting everything. Monday morning I had some free time before work, so I stopped by the grocery store near her apartment. I picked up basic stuff that everyone needs: milk, eggs, bread, some fruit, vegetables for salads, chicken breast, pasta, sauce. Nothing fancy or expensive, just staples so she wouldn't have to survive on ramen during finals week. I used the spare key she gave me to drop everything off while she was in class. I put the groceries away and left a note saying I hoped this would help her focus on studying instead of worrying about food. I thought it was a sweet gesture that showed I cared about her well-being. Jessica called me that evening, and she was furious. She said I had violated her space and her autonomy by entering her apartment without permission and making decisions about what food she needed. I tried to explain that I was just trying to help, but she said that wasn't the point. She said, buying someone groceries without asking is presumptuous and controlling, that I was imposing my ideas about what she should eat and how she should live. She felt like I was treating her like a charity case instead of an equal partner in the relationship. I apologized and said I genuinely meant well, but she said good intentions don't excuse boundary violations. She asked how I would feel if she let herself into my apartment and rearranged my kitchen cabinets, because she thought I was disorganized. I said that wasn't the same thing, but she disagreed. The conversation escalated when I pointed out that she'd given me a key and said I could use it any time. She said the key was for emergencies or when she was expecting me, not for surprise grocery deliveries. She felt like I'd used her trust against her. What really upset her was that I'd made assumptions about her financial situation without talking to her first. She said maybe she was saving money for something specific, or maybe she preferred to shop for herself, or maybe she had dietary restrictions I didn't know about. She was right that I'd never asked about any of those things. She also pointed out that I'd bought name brand items when she always buys generic to save money. She said now she felt obligated to eat food she hadn't budgeted for and couldn't return. The gesture that I thought was helpful had actually created financial pressure for her. I tried to explain that I hadn't thought about it that deeply, that I just saw someone I cared about struggling and wanted to help. But Jessica said that was exactly the problem. I'd acted on my feelings without considering her feelings or asking what kind of help she actually wanted. She said she'd been enjoying our relationship because I treated her as an independent person, not someone who needed to be taken care of. But the grocery incident made her feel like I saw her as someone who couldn't handle her own life. We tried to work through it over the next few days, but the conversation kept circling back to the same issues. She felt like I'd crossed a line, and I felt like she was overreacting to a kind gesture. Neither of us could understand the other's perspective. The final straw came when I suggested she was being ungrateful for something that cost me time and money to do for her. As soon as the words left my mouth, I knew I'd messed up, but it was too late. She said that comment proved I'd done it to make myself feel good, not to actually help her. Jessica broke up with me 2 days later. She said she needed to be with someone who would respect her boundaries and communicate before making decisions that affected her life. She returned my spare key and said she hoped I'd learn from this experience. I'm still confused about what went so wrong. I bought groceries for someone I cared about, who didn't have food in her house. It seems like such a normal thing to do for a girlfriend. But apparently, it was a relationship-ending mistake. My friends are split on this. Some think Jessica overreacted, and that I was just being a good boyfriend. Others say I should have asked first, and that using someone's key without permission is a big deal. I honestly don't know what to think anymore. Looking back, I can see that maybe I should have talked to her before buying anything, but I still don't understand why it was such a huge violation. I feel like I'm going to be scared to do anything nice for future girlfriends because apparently being thoughtful can be seen as controlling. This guy learned the hard way that good intentions don't automatically equal good actions. Jessica's reaction might seem extreme, but she's absolutely right that entering someone's space and making decisions about their life without consent crosses a boundary, even with the best intentions. The fact that he called her ungrateful shows he was more invested in being seen as a good boyfriend than actually understanding what kind of support she needed. Sometimes the most caring thing you can do is ask before you help. If you're still here listening to these wild relationship stories, consider subscribing because there's always more drama where this came from. And honestly, we're all just trying to figure out this whole love thing together. Let me tell you about a relationship disaster that started with the best of intentions but ended in complete chaos. My boyfriend proposed at my sister's funeral, and I said yes, but now I'm having second thoughts. I lost my sister Claire 3 weeks ago in a car accident, and I'm still processing the grief. She was my best friend, and losing her has been devastating for our entire family. The funeral was small and intimate, just close family and friends sharing memories and trying to support each other through this impossible time. My boyfriend David has been incredible. Throughout this whole ordeal, he took time off work to help me with arrangements. He held me while I cried. He made sure I ate when I forgot to take care of myself. I genuinely don't know how I would have gotten through the past few weeks without his support. During the graveside service, David was standing next to me, holding my hand, while the pastor spoke about Claire's life and how much she meant to all of us. I was barely holding it together, trying not to completely break down in front of everyone. My parents were crying, my aunts were sobbing, and the whole atmosphere was just heavy with grief. After the pastor finished and people started placing flowers on the casket, David suddenly got down on one knee, right there beside Claire's grave. He pulled out a ring box and started talking about how life is precious and unpredictable, how Claire's death had made him realise he didn't want to waste another day without me being his wife. Everyone stopped what they were doing and stared. My mum gasped, my dad looked confused, and I just stood there in shock holding this engagement ring while my sister's casket was 3 feet away from us. David was crying and saying beautiful things about our future together and how Claire would have wanted us to be happy. In that moment, overwhelmed by grief and love and the surreal nature of the situation, I said yes. People started clapping and crying and hugging us, and it felt like this strange mixture of celebration and mourning that I'd never experienced before. My mum said Claire would be so happy for us, and my dad shook David's hand with tears in his eyes. But now that I've had time to process what happened, I'm starting to feel really conflicted about the whole thing. Part of me is touched that David wanted to honour Claire's memory by making this commitment at her funeral. He said later that he wanted her to be there for our engagement even though she couldn't be there for our wedding. The other part of me feels like he hijacked one of the most painful days of my life and made it about us instead of about remembering Claire. I keep wondering if I only said yes because I was emotionally vulnerable and not thinking clearly. Would I have said yes if he'd proposed literally anywhere else under normal circumstances? My friends have been congratulating me, but a few have privately expressed concern about the timing. One of them said she thought it was romantic but inappropriate, and another said she couldn't believe he chose that moment to propose. They're trying to be supportive, but I can tell some of them think it was weird. The worst part is that now, every time I think about Claire's funeral, I don't just remember saying goodbye to my sister. I also remember getting engaged, and those two memories are forever intertwined in this complicated way that makes me feel guilty and confused. David is already talking about wedding plans and how we should have the ceremony next spring because that was Claire's favourite season. He wants to include tributes to her in our wedding, which is sweet but also makes me feel like our entire relationship timeline is now defined by her death. I love David and I do want to marry him eventually, but I'm starting to wonder if I said yes for the right reasons or if I was just caught up in the emotion of the moment. I don't know how to bring this up with him without hurting his feelings or making him think I don't want to be with him. My therapist says it's normal to have complicated feelings about major life decisions made during times of grief, but she can't tell me whether my engagement is valid or not. I have to figure that out for myself. The ring is beautiful, and David clearly put thought into choosing it, but every time I look at it, I think about standing next to Claire's grave, and I don't know if that association will ever go away. I feel like I'm mourning my sister and questioning my engagement at the same time, and I don't know how to separate those emotions. I haven't told my parents about my doubts because they seem genuinely happy about something positive happening during such a dark time. I don't want to take that away from them when they're still grieving too. I just wish David had waited literally any other day to propose, because now I'll never know if I would have said yes under normal circumstances. This is one of those situations where someone's heart was in the right place, but their timing was catastrophically wrong. Proposing at a funeral is like trying to celebrate Christmas during a root canal. The emotions are just too conflicted to process properly. The fact that she can't separate her grief from her engagement means this moment will always be complicated for her. David might have thought he was being romantic by including Claire in their engagement, but instead he created a memory that's impossible to untangle from loss. She deserves to know if she'd say yes when she isn't drowning in grief. Our next story shows how sometimes the people closest to us can surprise us in the worst possible ways. I found out my best friend has been sabotaging my dates for 2 years. Melissa and I have been best friends since college, and she's always been the person I turn to for advice about everything, especially dating. She's been single by choice for the past few years, saying she's focusing on her career and doesn't have time for relationships. I've always admired her independence and confidence. For the past 2 years, I've been actively dating, but nothing ever seems to work out. I'll have great first dates that lead to second dates, but then things always fizzle out around the third or fourth date. The guys just stop texting back, or they give me vague excuses about being busy or not ready for anything serious. I started to think there was something wrong with me, like maybe I was coming on too strong or boring them somehow. Melissa was always there to reassure me that the right guy would come along and that these men just weren't worth my time. She'd analyse every text message with me and help me craft responses that she said would keep them interested. Last month I matched with this guy, Ryan, on a dating app, and we really hit it off. He was funny, smart, and we had incredible chemistry both through text and on our first date. He asked me out again immediately, and I was so excited because it felt different from all the other guys who'd ghosted me. After our second date, Ryan asked for Melissa's Instagram handle because he said he wanted to follow all my friends and show that he was serious about getting to know the people in my life. I thought it was sweet and gave him her information without thinking twice about it. Our third date was amazing. We went to this little Italian restaurant and talked for hours about everything from travel, to our families, to our career goals. Ryan seemed genuinely interested in my life and kept saying how much he was looking forward to seeing me again. He texted me that night, saying he had an incredible time and couldn't wait for our next date. But then the texts stopped coming. Ryan went from texting me constantly to barely responding to my messages. When I asked if everything was okay, he said he was dealing with some personal stuff and needed space. I was confused because everything had seemed perfect just days before. I was venting to Melissa about the situation when she made a comment that struck me as odd. She said something like, "Well, at least you know the truth about him now." And when I asked what she meant, she quickly changed the subject and said she just meant that his true colours were showing. 2 days later, I was at Target when I ran into Ryan's roommate Jake, who I'd met briefly at a party. Jake seemed surprised to see me and asked how I was doing after everything that happened. When I looked confused, he said Ryan had told him about the situation, with my friend reaching out to him. I pressed Jake for details and he reluctantly explained that Melissa had direct messaged Ryan on Instagram, telling him that I'd asked her to warn him off because I wasn't actually interested in dating him seriously. She'd apparently said I was just using him for free dinners and that I'd been talking about how boring he was. I felt sick to my stomach. Jake showed me screenshots that Ryan had sent him of Melissa's messages. She'd been incredibly convincing, saying she was looking out for Ryan because she cared about him and didn't want to see him waste his time on someone who wasn't genuine. I confronted Melissa immediately, and she broke down crying. She admitted that she'd been messaging guys I dated for the past 2 years, telling them various lies about me not being interested or ready for relationships. She said she was afraid of losing me if I got into a serious relationship, and that she thought she was protecting our friendship. She told one guy that I was still hung up on my ex-boyfriend. She told another that I was planning to move across the country for work. She told a third that I'd said he was too short for me, and that I was embarrassed to introduce him to my friends. All complete lies designed to make them lose interest in me. The worst part was realizing how calculated it all was. She'd offer to help me analyze their text messages and then use the information I shared with her to craft believable stories about why they should stop pursuing me. She knew exactly what to say to make each guy think I wasn't worth the effort. When I asked her why she would do this to me, she said she was terrified of being left behind. She said watching me date made her feel lonely and inadequate, and that she'd convinced herself she was doing what was best for both of us. She claimed that none of those guys were good enough for me anyway. I told her I needed time to process everything and haven't spoken to her since. She's been sending me long text messages, apologizing and begging for forgiveness, saying our friendship means everything to her and that she'll do anything to make it right. I reached out to Ryan and explained what happened. He was understanding but said the whole situation was too complicated and weird for him to want to continue dating me. He said he couldn't get past the fact that my best friend had actively tried to sabotage our relationship. Now I'm wondering how many other connections I might have had if Melissa hadn't been systematically destroying my dating life for 2 years. I feel like I can't trust my judgment about people anymore because someone I considered my closest friend was betraying me behind my back this entire time. I don't know if our friendship can survive this or if I even want it to. She stole 2 years of potential relationships from me because she was too insecure to deal with the possibility of me being happy with someone else. The betrayal feels so deep because she was the person I turned to for comfort every time a guy ghosted me, and she was the one causing it to happen in the first place. This is friendship betrayal at its most calculated and devastating. Melissa didn't just sabotage a few dates, she systematically destroyed 2 years of potential relationships while positioning herself as the supportive best friend offering comfort. The fact that she used intimate details shared in confidence to craft believable lies makes this so much worse. She essentially made herself indispensable by creating the very problems she was helping solve. This isn't friendship. It's emotional manipulation disguised as loyalty. The scariest part is wondering how long this could have continued if Jake hadn't accidentally exposed the truth. Here's a story that proves sometimes the most innocent mistakes can unravel everything. I accidentally sent my boyfriend's mum a text meant for my best friend, and now she hates me. I've been dating Connor for 7 months, and meeting his family has been the biggest challenge of our relationship. His mum, Patricia, is very traditional and has made it clear that she thinks Connor is too young to be in a serious relationship. She's polite to me, but I can tell she's just tolerating my presence. Last weekend was Connor's birthday, and Patricia threw him a big family party at their house. I spent hours picking out the perfect outfit and practiced conversations in my head because I really wanted to make a good impression. I brought homemade cookies and a thoughtful gift, and I tried to be as charming and respectful as possible. The party was going okay until Patricia started telling stories about Connor's ex-girlfriend, Brittany, in front of everyone. She kept saying things like, Brittany always helped with the dishes, and Brittany knew exactly how Connor liked his coffee, and Brittany was so good at remembering everyone's birthdays. I was trying to stay positive, but it was obviously deliberate. Every story was a comparison designed to make me feel inadequate. Connor looked uncomfortable, but didn't say anything to his mum, which honestly made me feel worse than the actual comments. When Patricia brought out photo albums and started showing everyone pictures of Connor and Brittany at family events, I excused myself to the bathroom just to get a few minutes alone. I was frustrated and hurt, and I needed to vent to someone who would understand. I pulled out my phone and typed a long text to my best friend explaining what was happening. I wrote something like, Connor's mum is being such a passive-aggressive witch about his ex-girlfriend. She's literally showing photo albums of them together at his birthday party. I swear she invited me just to torture me with comparisons to perfect Brittany, who apparently walked on water and cured cancer in her spare time. This woman clearly hates me, and I don't know how much more of this fake politeness I can take. I was typing quickly because I could hear people looking for me downstairs, and I accidentally sent the message to Patricia instead of Paige in my contacts. Both names start with P, and they were right next to each other in my recent messages. I didn't realise my mistake until I saw the message marked as delivered to the wrong person. My stomach dropped. I tried to delete the message, but it was too late. Within seconds, I could see that Patricia had read it. I sat on the bathroom floor, having a panic attack, trying to figure out how to handle this disaster. I went back downstairs, and Patricia was acting completely normal, still showing photos and telling stories like nothing had happened. But I could see something different in her eyes when she looked at me. The fake politeness was gone and replaced with pure coldness. I lasted about 20 more minutes before I told Connor I wasn't feeling well and needed to go home. He offered to come with me, but I said he should stay and enjoy his party. I just needed to get out of there before Patricia decided to confront me in front of everyone. Connor called me that night and said his mum had pulled him aside after I left. She'd shown him the text and told him she was deeply hurt and offended by what I'd said about her. She said she'd been trying her best to welcome me into the family and that my text proved I was disrespectful and ungrateful. I tried to explain to Connor that I was just venting to my friend because I felt attacked by all the comparisons to Brittany. I said the text was meant to be private and that I was sorry Patricia saw it, but that I wasn't sorry for having feelings about how she'd been treating me. Connor said he understood why I was frustrated, but that calling his mum names was over the line. He said she'd been crying and that she felt like I'd been judging her the whole time while pretending to be nice to her face. He asked me to apologise to her directly. I agreed to apologise for the way I expressed my feelings and for Patricia seeing something that was meant to be private. But when I called her, she said my apology wasn't genuine and that she could tell I didn't respect her or their family values. She told Connor that she didn't think I was a good influence on him and that she was disappointed in his choice of girlfriend. She said the text revealed my true character and that she'd been right to have concerns about me from the beginning. Now, Connor is caught between his mum and his girlfriend, and he's asking me to just keep apologizing until she forgives me. But I feel like I'm being punished for having normal human emotions about a situation that was genuinely hurtful. Patricia has blocked me on social media and told Connor she doesn't want me at family events until I prove that I can be respectful. Connor says his family is everything to him and that he needs his mum to approve of whoever he's with. I love Connor, but I don't know how to move forward when his mum has decided I'm a terrible person based on one frustrated text message that she was never supposed to see. The worst part is that the text wasn't even that bad. I was just pointing out behaviour that was obviously designed to make me uncomfortable. Now I feel like I have to choose between standing up for myself and keeping my relationship with Connor. His mum has successfully made herself the victim in a situation where she was the one being passive-aggressive in the first place. I don't know if I should keep apologising for something I'm not really sorry for, or if I should accept that Patricia and I are never going to have a good relationship. This is what happens when your private thoughts collide with family drama in the most mortifying way possible. Patricia was absolutely being passive-aggressive with those Britney comparisons, but accidentally calling someone a passive-aggressive witch in a text creates a whole different level of conflict. The fact that Connor is asking her to keep apologising instead of addressing his mum's original behaviour shows where his loyalties lie. Sometimes a wrong number text reveals more than just your true feelings. It reveals exactly how much support you can expect from your partner when things get messy. Patricia got the ammunition she needed to position herself as the victim while completely avoiding accountability for her own behaviour. Let's dive into another story that shows how quickly things can spiral when family gets involved. Thanks for sticking around for all these wild relationship stories. If you're still here listening to people's dating disasters unfold, you should definitely subscribe because honestly, we're all just trying to figure out how love works. And sometimes the best way to do that is by learning from other people's mistakes. That text disaster shows how one misplaced message can expose family dynamics that everyone was pretending didn't exist. Patricia got exactly what she wanted, proof that she was right to dislike her son's girlfriend, while completely avoiding any accountability for her passive-aggressive museum tour of Connor's romantic history. The real problem isn't the text, it's that Connor expects his girlfriend to apologise her way into his mother's good graces instead of addressing why his mum felt comfortable being so openly hostile in the first place. Here's our final story tonight, and it's about discovering that sometimes the person you think you know best has been living a completely different life. I found out my husband of 15 years has a second family, and I don't know how to process this. My name is Rachel, and I thought I had a pretty good marriage. David travels for work about 2 weeks every month as a sales consultant, and while I miss him when he's gone, I've always trusted him completely. He's been doing this job for 12 years, and it's allowed us to build a really comfortable life together. We have 2 teenage daughters, and David has always been a devoted father when he's home. He coaches soccer, helps with homework, and never misses important events like recitals or parent-teacher conferences. I genuinely believed we were happy together. Last month, our younger daughter Chloe was working on a school project about family trees and asked David about his work trips because she wanted to include all the cities he visits regularly. He mentioned Chicago, Denver and Phoenix as his main territories, which matched what I'd always known about his schedule. But then Chloe asked if he'd ever been to Portland because her friend's dad travels there for work, and she was curious if they might have crossed paths. David got this weird look on his face and said no. He'd never worked in the Portland market. Something about his reaction seemed off, but I didn't think much of it at the time. 2 weeks later, I was doing our taxes and needed some receipts from David's business expenses. He usually keeps everything organised in a file cabinet in his home office, so I went looking for the folder from last year. While I was searching through the files, I found a folder labelled Portland that was stuffed with hotel receipts, restaurant bills, and gas station receipts. The dates on the receipts showed that David had been going to Portland regularly for over 8 years, sometimes staying for 5 or 6 days at a time. I was confused because he'd just told Chloe he'd never been there for work. Why would he lie about something so random? I started looking through the receipts more carefully and noticed that some of the restaurant bills were for multiple people, like family meals with kids' menu items. There were also receipts from places like Chuck E. Cheese and a children's clothing store. I couldn't understand why David would be buying kids' clothes on business trips. That weekend, while David was home, I casually asked him about Portland again, saying I was curious about his work territories. He stuck to his story that he'd never worked there, and seemed annoyed that I was asking. When I mentioned finding the receipts, he said they must be from a different client project that got cancelled and that he'd forgotten about it. His explanation didn't make sense because the receipts spanned years, not just one cancelled project. I decided to do something I'd never done before and look through his phone while he was in the shower. I felt terrible about violating his privacy, but something was clearly wrong. What I found destroyed my entire world. There were thousands of text messages to a woman named Jennifer about school pickup times, doctor appointments, soccer practice schedules, and everyday family logistics. The messages went back years and read exactly like the text David and I send each other about our own kids. Jennifer was asking David to pick up milk on his way home. David was reminding Jennifer about their son's parent-teacher conference. Jennifer was sending David photos of their daughter's art project. They were coordinating carpools and discussing bedtime routines and planning birthday parties. I sat on our bathroom floor, reading message after message that made it clear David had been living a completely separate family life in Portland for years. He had a wife named Jennifer and 2 young children, a 6-year-old son and a 4-year-old daughter. He was their full-time dad when he was supposed to be on business trips. The most devastating part was seeing how much he loved them. His messages to Jennifer were tender and affectionate. He called her sweetheart and told her he missed her when he had to come back to our city for his other job. He sent her photos of sunsets and told her he was thinking about her. There were videos of him reading bedtime stories to their kids and photos of him pushing their daughter on a swing at a park I'd never seen. He looked genuinely happy in these pictures, like he was living his real life instead of just visiting it. I found social media profiles where Jennifer posted family photos with David at birthday parties, Christmas mornings, and family vacations. She referred to him as her husband and tagged him in posts about their anniversary. Their kids called him Daddy and looked at him with the same adoration my daughters had when they were that age. The timeline showed that David had started this second family about 3 years after our youngest daughter was born. He'd been maintaining 2 complete households, 2 sets of children, 2 wives who both thought they were his only family. I confronted David that night and he broke down completely. He admitted that he'd fallen in love with Jennifer during a legitimate work trip to Portland 8 years ago. What started as an affair had become a second marriage and family that felt just as real to him as ours did. He said he'd never meant for it to go this far, but that he couldn't bear to hurt either family by choosing between them. He'd convinced himself that he could make both relationships work if he just managed his time carefully enough. He said he loved Jennifer and their kids just as much as he loved me and our daughters. When I asked how he could live with himself, he said it had been eating him alive for years, but that he felt trapped. He said leaving either family would destroy innocent people, and that he'd thought he could somehow keep everyone happy by maintaining both lives. The practical details were staggering. He'd been paying 2 mortgages, 2 sets of health insurance premiums, 2 family cell phone plans. He'd been attending 2 sets of parent-teacher conferences, 2 rounds of Christmas mornings, 2 anniversary dinners every year. Jennifer had no idea about us, just like we'd had no idea about them. David had told her that his frequent travel was for a different job that required him to be away from Portland regularly. She thought she was married to a devoted husband who just had demanding work obligations. I asked David what he wanted to do now that everything was out in the open. He said he didn't know and that he'd been dreading this day for years. He said he couldn't imagine living without either family, but that he knew he couldn't keep lying to everyone forever. I told him he had 1 week to figure out what he wanted, because I wasn't going to share my husband with another wife anymore. He's been staying at a hotel since then, supposedly trying to decide between his two families, like we're items on a menu. The hardest part is that I still love him, and I can see that he genuinely loves both families. This isn't a situation where he was cheating because he was unhappy with me. He created a second life because he wanted more love, more family, more of everything, and he thought he could have it all without anyone getting hurt. But now, our daughters are asking why Daddy's living in a hotel, and I don't know how to explain that their father has been living a double life for 8 years. I don't know how to tell them they have half-siblings they've never met, and that their dad has been splitting his love between two families this entire time. I feel like my entire marriage has been a lie, but also like it was completely real. David wasn't pretending to love us. He just wasn't telling us that he loved someone else just as much. I don't know if that makes it better or worse. This story is absolutely devastating because David wasn't just cheating. He was living 2 complete lives with the same level of commitment and love for both families. The fact that he maintained this for 8 years while being a devoted father and husband to 2 different sets of people shows a level of compartmentalization that's almost impossible to comprehend. Both Rachel and Jennifer thought they had loving, faithful husbands. And technically, they did. They just had to share him without knowing it. The saddest part is that David probably does love both families genuinely, which makes this situation tragic for everyone involved, rather than just a simple betrayal. There's no good ending here, just 2 families that are about to be destroyed by one man's inability to choose. If you made it through all of these wild tales of romance gone wrong, you're clearly as fascinated by human nature as I am. Consider subscribing if you want more of these late-night story sessions because honestly, the internet never runs out of relationship drama and I never get tired of reading about it. Until next time, sleep well and see you tomorrow.